In this one, we're going to be installing Django crispy forms into our project. We're just going to be doing the basics for it so our forms look and behave just a little bit better. There's a lot more that you can do with crispy forms than we'll cover in this video. So if you want to know a lot more about it, please let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get started. Now, you can follow their user guide or go to their docs, so django-crispyforms.readthedocs.org. You can actually go through their installation process, but that's really what we're going to be doing because it's fairly simple. So let's go ahead and jump into our virtual environment, and I'll do pip install django-crispy-forms. And this will install the crispy forms, the latest version of the Django crispy forms library. If it's not 1.6, that's okay. You can have 1.7 or whatever. At the very end of the day, if something is drastically different in the video, just check out their documentation so you can fix whatever might be going on there. But as far as I know, they're not going to change this really basic thing that we're about to implement. So jumping into our project settings, we're going to go into settings.py or settings.py, and we're going to come in here and just add in crispy forms. So crispy forms as a installed app, and then we're going to add one setting to it, just one, and this is going to be crispy underscore template underscore pack equals to bootstrap 3. So crispy template pack and bootstrap 3. So that's just going off of bootstrap version 3, and if we look at our project, let's run the server again, we can actually see that in here. If I inspect the element, I will see that we are actually working with bootstrap version 3 inside of the code right there. So bootstrap 3. There is other versions of bootstrap. There's an older version, and then there's a version that they're working on. As far as this video is concerned, they're still working on it. It's version 4. But for us, we're going to be using bootstrap 3. Okay, so that's really all we need to do for the installation process. So let's go ahead and run a migrate. So python manage.py and migrate, just to make sure that it's all everything related to crispy forms would be migrated, but there's nothing really related in the database for crispy forms, so not a whole lot we have to worry about there specifically. Like crispy forms doesn't store data is the point. All right, so now that we've got this, we can use the crispy form tag, so the template tag, specifically to make our forms look a little bit better. So inside of templates, we're going to open up post form, and we're going to load crispy forms tags. And this will allow us to use the crispy filter. So down in our form, we get rid of as P and just put a up and down slash and just crispy. And once we save that, we go back into our project. Let's make sure the server's running. It still is. Notice how the form is rendered right now. I refresh it and it changes it ever so slightly. Now the title goes all the way across. We'll worry about this in a second, the spacing and stuff like that. Image field doesn't really change. The publish field does change. But if I hit create post, now it gives me errors or better validation errors, or at least the styling for them is better than what it was. So now what I want to do is actually change the way this is formatted. So let's go ahead and inspect the element here. And what we see is we have WMD wrapper. And if we go inside of it, we have WMD panel. So the class of WMD wrapper and the class of WMD panel. So what we want to do is actually change the class of WMD panel to actually not indent it like it is. So let's go ahead and grab that class. I'm going to copy it there. And I'm going to go into our static CSS here. And I'm just going to paste it in here. So WMD panel. So if we go back in here into the browser, we can actually play around with the CSS directly in the browser. You can do this with all types of browsers. It's not Chrome specific, but what we're going to be doing is just playing around with the cascading style sheets or the way it looks by using this inspect element stuff. So if I click on that element and go down to where it says styles, and granted your actual format of how this looks might be slightly different, right? It might be out more or it might be down here at the bottom. But the main thing here is we're going to go into the style or the rendered style itself. And notice if I uncheck the margins, it goes right where we would probably want it to be. So that's actually what we're going to do in our CSS is just get rid of that margin left and margin right. Margin right doesn't seem like it makes a difference, but I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it just because we don't need it. So inside of this style that we're doing here, we're just going to do margin right 0 pixels and margin left, 0 pixels. We're going to save that. We're going to refresh in here, and nothing happens. It does show us the base.css showing up here. And this is okay on local development, but when we go live, we're going to have to do something else, which we'll get to in a second. So it's actually crossing that stuff out. And now your question might be, well, why is it doing that? Well, if we go into base.html, we've got our base static right here. But then we also included that block head extra. So inside of our form, that stuff's being rendered directly in here on form.media. So all I'm going to do here is add an important call. And this will override that setting that is in there. So if I refresh, now it's right there in line and it's looking a lot better as far as the layout is concerned, right? So this is really much better actually. Okay, cool. So now that we've got that, there's one more thing that we still need to do, and that is python manage.py and collect static, and we'll say yes. So what we did here was we took our static file, which is coming inside of our project, and we're bringing it to that static CDN. Now, if you watch Try Django 1.9, we kind of talked about this, but the main thing here is it has to do with security and making sure that your site and your Django server is not vulnerable. Serving static files might cause security issues, as well as it's probably not that efficient. And that's coming directly from the Django developers themselves. So what we do is we collect the static files to an outside server. It's not something we're going to cover quite yet, but that is something that you might consider doing because it's a very important practice. Okay, so that is pretty much it. We now have our Django Crispy Forms installed, and we make our form look just a little bit better. If you have any questions on what we did here, and also if you want to see more on Django Crispy Forms, please let us know in the comments, because there's definitely a lot more stuff that we can do in Django Crispy Forms itself. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.